I don't have a favorite monster in Monster Hunter. And that feels a bit weird, because if you ask almost any player, they'll tell you three things: their favorite weapon, their favorite game in the series, and their favorite monster. But while I've always had a favorite weapon and game, which I'll talk about in the future, I've never had a favorite monster. I have monsters I enjoy for different reasons, which I'll be talking about in this video, but I've never had an all-time favorite that I can support and glaze with all my heart. So today I'll be talking about the monsters I like in Monster Hunter, why both I and other players might enjoy these monsters, and the kind of checklist a monster would have to meet to become my favorite monster in Monster Hunter. So there are probably over 150 unique large monsters in Monster Hunter as a series, and that's excluding subspecies variants and basically the whole of Frontier, which probably has over 100 plus monsters in that by itself, which is obviously a lot more than the base 14 weapons in the game. So in a sense, obviously choosing a favorite monster is definitely going to be a lot harder than choosing a favorite weapon due to how much choice you have. However, I believe there's a couple different factors that warrant why people enjoy certain monsters, and that's kind of what I'm just going to be talking about today. So obviously I think the first very basic one is the design of the monster. Now design obviously can be a variety of things. I'm going to firstly talking about obviously the visual aesthetic. Like obviously most monsters are designed in a specific way to match the environment they're in or kind of the progression of the game you're in. For example, like you wouldn't expect something like an Elder Dragon like design to be the first monster in the game. That's not the point. But in a sense, there are specific designs to me that kind of, I don't know how to describe it, but more like call to me and make me really be like, actually, wow, that's like a sick design. So one of the monsters that made me feel this way was Valstrax, which I had fought in Monster Hunter Rise and also Sunbreak. However, it wasn't until going back to Monster Hunter GU where he was the flagship monster and I had all those sick cutscenes of him in the trailers that I really came to appreciate his insane design. As many obviously say, Valstrax is just a dragon with a jet engine strapped to its wings, which I think is one of the most insane designs in the series. And also the overall just sleek and angular design, but also how the wings, which are usually used for flying, can also be used to launch projectiles at the player when you're fighting him, which I think is so cool. Another monster that I really enjoy the look of is Gormagala and overall the Gormagala tree, which includes Shigeru Magala and Chaotic Gormagala. I really like Gormagala and how he actually has multiple different versions of the monster, which basically represent his life cycle instead of just having the monster transform during the fight. Mainly from Gormagala to Shigeru Magala, where it kind of goes from being like a more blind and dark hooded kind of figure to more of like a majestic like golden like monster with the star pattern on the wings being really iconic to me. And also the fact that they adapted this to having then Chaotic Gormagala, which is kind of like a middle ground of being like, oh, what happens if it went wrong? I think that's just a really cool like way to evolve just like a monster's design, but make it feel like natural and fit in the world of Monster Hunter, which obviously revolves not around the magic and arcane that much, but more on the environment and evolution and nature. Now, those are the two monsters that really speak to me in terms of their design. However, another really important part of a monster design is their overall fight. And to me, Valstrax and Gormagala's fights, they're fine, but to me, they don't feel like good. And unfortunately, this is gonna be a really hard way to describe it, but I'll be able to really easily show it. And to me, fights that feel really good in Monster Hunter, for me, that is Arkfeld. Arkfeld, honestly, is one of the nicest fights I feel in Monster Hunter. It's really hard to describe, and probably someone that plays the game a bit more than me can articulate this in a sense, but it just feels like the way he goes from move to move and transitions and winds up in a way, it's not too like out of the ordinary, but it's enough that you can read it and predict and react accordingly. And that what makes the fight just feel really nice to me. And another monster that I had this feeling of it being a really like good fight was Raging Brachydios in Monster Hunter World Iceborne. I'd actually heard that this monster was really challenging, but overall the fight itself felt really nice. And once I got past obviously the blast bite mechanic, the overall like aggressiveness of Brachydios and using like the clutch claw and figuring out how he like moves and charges and uses all the explosions felt really nice to me. And again, I don't know half the time if this is the monster's design and the way Capcom has designed the monsters in a way, or it's just my reaction and synergy with the monster as a player, but that's up for debate. Thinking of other design, there's so many monsters that I've played in this series that I'm definitely forgetting some, but some other notable shout outs would be stuff like Malzeno's teleportation. I think that's a really interesting mechanic that is incredibly not use because no other monster really teleports. But I think that it's a sick mechanic nonetheless. And what else there? In terms of siege monsters, I'm personally not a big fan of any of the main siege fights in the Monster Hunter series so far. I'm not that I don't like them, it's just I don't really enjoy them as much. I think the main kind of sieges or like big boss fight monster that I do enjoy, I think, was Gogmazius. Gogmazius was pretty fun. That was a really interesting one because it had set stages and step mechanics you had to interact with, but overall the way it was designed and being able to kind of watch the the giant dragon laser and the giant kamikaze attacks, like those are cool to me. I haven't actually fought Elatrion and Safi'jiiva properly, and also Kulftuoth in World, so I will not give my opinions on that, but if you want to let me know about that, let us know in the comments below. And the final thing I want to talk about in terms of designs of monsters is obviously the stuff like the stakes, the music, the atmosphere, stuff that isn't inherently built into the monster, but surrounds it and helps create the overall fight experience and interaction with the monster. So for example, a really good one is actually Gogmazius and the Gathering of the Curio quest you do right before, which obviously, the whole environment, it's night, the Lunar Yaren acts obviously very weird, there's no other monsters around, they're all dead and stuff. I think that's a really good setup to then kind of bring in the final boss of Sunbreak and show the real threat the Curio have to the ecosystem in the area. Obviously, there's another couple iconic ones, such as example, Betelgeuse's invasion music is a very iconic one. If you hear that, you know he's going to invade and you're going to be fucked. I've heard also that Fatalis having Proof of a Hero play is a very iconic soundtrack while fighting the monster. Unfortunately, I haven't gone up to it yet, so get to experience that. And I guess most final boss fights of this game, so I know Artul Kal and Generations Ultimate, obviously Chariswalder and Geismagorm in Rise, and then those are obviously very high stakes fights, and at the end of the story you kind of be building up to it throughout the whole game. I think they're also quite good and can lead monsters to being definitely quite favored due to obviously the grand nature of the fight. Anyways, while we're kind of halfway through the video, please consider subscribing. We're so close to 1k. I don't usually ask for subscribers or anything, I've already gotten so much support, but I really want to be able to hit 1k very soon, so your support would mean a lot to me. Alright, now I'm going to give to some other reasons why people like monsters, and probably one of the reasons that I haven't actually got a favorite is because one of the main important parts of Monster Hunter is obviously the armor and the weapons. So a lot of the times, some of my favorite monsters I've listed here, for example Valstrax, I really like the monster and sometimes the fight as well and stuff, but the armor and weapons is kind of it's not right there for me sometimes. And because a lot of time this is slightly due to the fact that I personally prefer the male design of a lot of armor, but I usually play as a female in these games, so that's kind of on me. But anyway, I'm talking about some armor weapons that I really like from monsters that I might not particularly enjoy in terms of the actual fight or design, but in terms of the drip, of course. So firstly, Odogaron. Odogaron's armor is really nice. It's kind of a mix between that Japanese kind of almost like a samurai, but it's more kind of ninja. I can't really explain it, I'm terrible at doing this, but almost anyone who's played World and Iceborne would probably say that this armor is one of the best looking in the game. All of the Odogaron armors really. Next up also, I really like the Frostfang Bereth armor. It's a really slick design, and having the full mask as well, especially on female armor, is really nice. Another one I do like is Arcveld weapons. Arcveld weapons is one of the best looking weapons I feel in Wilds. Mainly not just the fact that the designs are really good, but also the fact that the weapons actually kind of are named off of people that sit at King Arthur's table, which I think really matches that knight vibe that Arcveld gives. And also, I really like the design of Shigeru Megala Chargeblade. That's just the one weapon I really like. Other than that, there's a lot of other weapons that I probably like that I can't really name because there's just too many, and that kind of does speak volumes to obviously Monster Hunter and Monster Hunter's design, not only just on its monster, but obviously the armor and stuff, and translating the monster's visual appeal to kind of a different medium in a sense. Now, the final thing I want to talk about in why people might like a specific monster is their own personal experience and the emotional connection symbolism certain monsters have. So an example of this obviously is, say, the first monster you ever fought. For me, I can't remember this, but it would have been in Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate, and it would have been some basic, it would have been that basic first monster. I can't remember what it was, but I'll search it up later. But maybe it's, for example, the Great Jagras in World, Rise is Great Izuchi, and now probably most people will remember Chadakabra as the first monster that you played. Because Chadakabra I feel is now it feels very iconic, the design, even though it's very simple, all first monsters are. but I even still use some Chowder Carb armor in some layered sets. But anyway, another reason maybe that players might enjoy Monster is obviously like the learning experience they provide. I know there's probably been countless monsters that kind of make you go like, oh damn, I gotta improve my build. My build doesn't have these specific skills I need, or okay, I need to play in a specific way and be a bit more patient, or I need to just get good, you know? And those monsters can kind of leave a lasting impression, because if you go against a monster and you just kind of blitz it and then move on, you're not really gonna remember. But if you get actually stuck at this wall, this challenge, and take the time to really like learn and improve against the monster, then it kind of stays with you a lot longer. And that's when you can kind of begin to enjoy a monster and maybe even becomes your favorite in the future. Now, the final one, reason I can think of why people have favorite monster in Monster Hunter might be because it's a meme. It's funny, right? A iconic example is, I think, Hezu. Hezu's quite a memeable monster. Dodogama in World is quite memed on. Devil Joe is quite memed on as well. And also like Basil Juice with the invasion thing. Like, these monsters are pretty funny in a sense, and the memes around them are pretty good. And so maybe that's why people enjoy them as well. So anyway, yeah, that's it. That's kind of my thoughts on how people have a favorite monster in Monster Hunter. And I guess onto that, I guess the final checklist that a monster would have to have. Obviously, it had to be a really iconic design and really interesting and unique. It had to be a good fight, and gameplay wise, stakes wise, I don't really care that much in a sense, as long as it's like a cool like moment. I guess that's some aura. Like, I don't really know. Obviously, cool weapons and armor, and I guess maybe it has to be challenging, you know. Has to be a good fight and makes you work for it. I think that'd be the blueprint for my favorite monster. And maybe I'll find it in the future in Wild's DLC or in playing some of these older games, and I'll really find a cool monster that I enjoy. So yeah. Anyway, that's my rant and experience about not having a favorite monster in Monster Hunter. I hope you guys related a bit. Comment, you know, your favorite monster or how you found your favorite monster in Monster Hunter. And yeah, there won't be any live streams at the moment. I think I'm currently away when this video is being posted, but definitely check in and please subscribe. We're so close to 1K. It would mean a lot. And again, I'm very grateful to all you guys being able to share this passion for the game and the series. And so yeah, thank you guys for watching. Stick around for some more videos, and we'll see you guys very soon. Peace.